Good day, welcome to The Dope, and welcome to the Superwoman of the Travel Industry series. Our next guest started her career in the travel industry as a journalist with the Indian Express Group. After developing a penchant for the travel industry, she got into the mainstream tourism, establishing her career in the international destination marketing. In her capacity as manager, marketing Western region, she represented Canada and later worked at the erstwhile Maison de la France office as a promotion manager and later as deputy director. In 2015, she was nominated the first non-French director for ATOUT France, the France Tourism Development Agency, an arm of the French Ministry of External Affairs in India. Her objective was to promote France as a premier tourism destination and enhance its visibility in the Indian landscape, resulting in augmenting the footprint of Indian travelers in France. In addition to her professional and accomplishments, Sheetal has pursued her interests in oenology and is a master's degree in French literature and a superior diploma holder at the Alliance Française. So let's welcome our guest, Ms Sheetal Munshaw. Sheetal, I know it's a really long, introduction, but I'm so happy to have you on our show.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. So Sheetal, I know that everybody would have, I'm just quite interested to understand from a journalist to heading into the tourism circuit, how did it all start? How come the interest in tourism came in?
So I think honestly, if I trace back my career, I'd say really the French language has really been a leitmotif, and language by and large, I'd say, not just French, because I've been a student of arts and literature. I, sort of did my BA in English literature, then went on to do my MA in French literature, and I think all along language has been a part of the story, so it's pretty much been like the driving force. I started out as a journalist, like you said. It was part of the business publications division. And interestingly enough, my stream of my field of specialty was travel and hospitality. But I think as I interacted with people and through my time there, I realized that actually I gravitated towards the travel industry. I think most people do. It's such a people's place, such a people's industry. And I think anyone who loves to travel and who loves people, culture, cuisine, all of this sort of comes together beautifully. And I was really drawn towards that side of, I would say on that side of the vertical much more than journalism itself. I still do continue to love writing, but I definitely think that my passion for travel took over. And then one thing led to another. And I think, given that I love language, given that I love, like you said, I love my wines, there could be no better fit for me than France.
So was the language the first interest in joining the organization, or did you study French after? Did you pursue your diplomas post?
I had actually finished studying by the time I started working, pretty much like the very traditional course of things. I think the only thing that I continued to pursue in terms of learning, I think learning never stops, of course, but I mean formal academic education. I pursued a lot of my, academic pursuits of oenology much after. But definitely, I had already done, doing my bit with the French language, so to speak. It was pretty much, one thing led to another. It was right place, right time. It was one of those really was meant to be kind of things that happened. And that's how I landed up with the organization. But it was really not to be able to, I would say, exploit my competence in the language. It was just that, it was a great opportunity that came by, and it was definitely an offer that I would not refuse. And that's pretty much how I landed up working.
Tell us a little.
Maison de la France.
Absolutely, Maison de la France. And tell us a little more about ATOUT France and what initiatives have you been taken to sell the French experience to the Indian market?
So if I trace it back to when I actually started out, that was like in 2004.
Okay.
A lot has changed. A lot has changed, and I'd say not just for France, but for the travel industry by and large, for the Indian traveler, for the way in which the Indians travel. Everything's changed over the years. So obviously, we've changed along with that as well. I think our initial phases were very much focused on, only, the source markets of Bombay, Delhi. We were very much traditional in our marketing approach, wherein we were very focused on B2B, of course, which we still are very committed to. But I think also the manner in which we promoted it was more traditional back in the day. Of course, there were familiarization trips because we still believe that seeing is believing. And I think it's more true today than ever before. And of course, things like inviting media to come and have first-hand experiences that they can recount and, have their own narrative, which is authentic and not just, things that they have copy pasted from references and so on. But I think over the years, what has really structured our marketing strategy in the past 5 years at least has been using, I would say, our areas of excellence and the whole experiential side of France in sort of promoting the destination seamlessly. So when I say that, what I mean is things like the art de vivre, the savoir faire. We spoke about gastronomy, which has been awarded, UNESCO World Heritage status and so on. So all of these things are our vehicle to promote France, and it's no longer about going out there and talking about it through a PowerPoint or through a catalog. It's really about delivering an experience. It's really about creating memories right from the time that you start talking about the destination, not until you get there, but even before. Creating preludes to journeys, sort of fueling people's imagination, fueling their desire to want to discover France or rediscover France, because we have so many people who are passionate about the country, who are francophone, who have, a love for the culture or the art or, any sort of connection that they have with France. So yeah, it's just about, bringing those communities together. And I think our approach, if I were to put it in one word, it would be really has been extremely experiential. And I think we will continue in that vein, even in times to come.
Now, what you have, I mean, in fact, we were talking about, the experiential part of France as a destination. In fact, as an organization, how you have, moved, how you have marketed yourself, France as a destination for a lot of experiences for the visitors from India, and world over for sure. But what I would also want to understand is, uh, what do you talk about the concept of women having it all? I know it's a very cliched question, but is it right to impose such a standard only on the working women?
I don't think it's fair to impose that standard to anyone, honestly. And whenever somebody talks about women having it all, it always reminds me of the PepsiCo CEO, Indra Nui, who did this absolutely wonderful interview where she precisely spoke about the subject of how women, and most likely nobody, can have it all, while it may seem like that from the outside. So yeah, I think it's particularly unfair. And I think, by Indian standards, we have all of these, you need to be a great housekeeper, you need to be a great mother, you need to play all your roles, be a daughter, a daughter-in-law, a wife, of, all of that. And of course, your role as a professional. So I don't think anyone really has it all. And I think that it's all about, having that ability to multitask in some form that I think we're all inherently blessed with as women. And yeah, at some stage you win some, you lose some. But you just deploy, I think, strategies even in your personal life, and you find ways to try and strike that balance. And I think most often than not, you don't strike that balance, but at least you try.
Absolutely. Coming to the current situation in the travel and tourism industry, how has the COVID and the lockdown affected you, personally and professionally?
So I think as a so we have a peculiar status, I would say, in terms of ATOUT France, because we're partially institutional and partially private as well, because we work with the system of memberships wherein we have people in the private sector as well as in the public sector sector who actually subscribe to being members of ATOUT France. So I think at this point, we would say that we are more relevant than ever before. I'd like to say that because I think that it is our duty to be playing that role of the intermediary to the fullest. I think, being well informed in today's day and age is critical. So I think one of the first things we did as an organization is, take immediate steps to make sure that we were ensuring that information was being disseminated and factually, not sensationally, but factually. And I insist upon that because I think it's critical, because there is so much going on in terms of information. There's such an overload of information right now. And we did that on both sides of the fence. So I think as far as our French partners and suppliers were concerned, we really went out there. We created interactive maps with, live real-time updates on where each of the countries where we are present physically stand in terms of the impact of COVID, in terms of the impact, and not just about I would say the number of cases and so on, but also how is it impacting the whole landscape economically and otherwise. Giving them updates, bringing them up to speed, bringing local experts alongside us, and actually disseminating information through webinars where we take them through exactly what the reality is, the way it is, and then of course accompany them and help deploy recovery strategies eventually, which is of course something that is still work in progress, which we're working on. The government has come up with a 10-point program in terms of what people need to do in terms of SOPs and protocols to become COVID compliant. So all of these things are actually things that we play a very active role in. And of course, on the other side, in the India market, I think we have been very closely in touch with, of course, the travel agent community. We have been in touch with the media, again, making sure that we're giving out information real time in terms of what is happening in France, the phases of the lockdown, the manner in which the whole unlock or the deconfinement has happened, what countries are allowed in. Right now, they're the air bubble. So how is that being managed? That you need an international travel certificate. So all of those things is something that we're, constantly keeping in touch on both sides of the fence. And I think that this role is going to become even more crucial in times to come. And then, of course, once things do sort of bounce back or get back to anywhere close to what we consider normal, there is going to be, of course, the recovery plan wherein we will all sort of, try and ensure that we put the message out there and also, create awareness generation about where France stands today in terms of receiving tourists, which is one of the biggest industries for us, of course, as you know.
I know. What's the status? I mean, how is France coping up with this situation?
So, of course, it's going to be a Schengen and an EU sort of collaborative movement naturally, and it's not going to be a sort of, a single-handed decision made by France. I think in terms of the pandemic, it's been managed pretty well, I'd say, because the French government has been super proactive on both ends. A, managing the pandemic and, the whole rules of lockdown, and B, also ensuring to, back the industries up with government funding, securing jobs, and also giving impetus to the travel industry when the recovery happens. So that commitment stands, and I think France will continue to support its travel and tourism industry, among others, of course. So that is one part of the planning. In terms of the safety certificate, actually, of course, there was a lot of, I would say, strategizing happening on that one. But I think eventually there is going to be sort of, like I was saying, SOPs that will be put in place, but which will keep evolving, because unfortunately, this is not a status quo situation. It's not over, it's ever evolving, and we don't know what's waiting for us next. So the French government has decided to lay out certain norms and rules whereby the different, hoteliers, establishments, attractions will have to go by those norms. They will then have a sort of, certification, which is not really a label, but which will be at the, at the entrance of those attractions to say that we've abided by these. But those rules and regulations are going to keep changing as we go along. They're not going to stay completely locked in because, like I said, things seem to evolve so much that we're still grappling with it. And we're trying to keep up to speed as much as possible. And so we're not closing any doors. So there may be certain protocols that, could go away as well because they won't be relevant anymore, and some new ones that might need to be added. Then in terms of course, arrivals, at this point, EU has opened up, as you know. So travel within the Schengen very soon with UK as well will start in terms of a bilateral arrangement. And of course, we're very happy that Air France has been part of the very first foray of the air bubble. Having said that, at this point, those flights are still for really essential travel, primarily repats, The only difference is that earlier they were not allowed to fly, non-EU residents, whereas now they can. And the other thing is also that they can bring in people from France into India. So it's still a very slow process, but we're in the right direction. Is I think the way we need to look at it.
Okay. Now, if you're looking at now the key learnings for or the message to the future women aspirants in this industry, and I think we're also talking about what would be your views on the way forward in terms of sustainability in your growth plans and your cultural innovations. I think maybe we could just summarize it a little bit.
So, in terms of women, I'd say, you know what, firstly, we're lucky to be in an industry which is one of those industries that is not, I think, driven by gender bias anymore. I think back in the day it was a largely male dominated industry, but I think over the years, women have, I think, played major roles in the travel sector across, the verticals and including hospitality, of course. So it's an all encompassing presence across hierarchies. I think we intuitively have certain skill sets or certain, I would even say, behavioral patterns and mannerisms that make and lend ourselves to be very naturally and seamlessly part of this industry, because change is a way of life and travel. And I mean it really actually at a micro and macro level, because on a macro level, of course, we've changed from those paper tickets to going, to the doorstep of a travel agent, to everything coming to you seamlessly with a barcode. Um, the whole hotel experiences have changed, everything has changed. And I think on a micro level, typically being Indians, you change your mind, you decide that you're planning this itinerary, and then you have this dinner conversation and say, oh my god, I totally didn't include this in my plan, go back and say I want this changed. So tomorrow morning I was supposed to do this excursion. So I think that ability to be able to deal with change continuously, multitask, have that attention for detail to say that, okay, this change needed to be made, has it been done, has it been executed. And then also I think the whole EQ, because in the end travel is it's much more than just commodities and transactions. It's so much more about people's emotions. I mean, they're investing not just their money, but their time in traveling. It's also become, I think, one of those privileged moments for nuclear families to come together and actually spend some quality time together. So we're really actually in a business of making dreams come true, really. So I think that EQ quotient is really important. Again, on both sides of the fence, whether you're dealing with your end users and travelers, or whether you're actually dealing with your own staff, because there are sometimes in peak season, I know that there are unending hours. So that whole manner in which you deal with people that work with you, your workforce, and the ability to also have that empathy. So I think women just need to be, I think, intuitive, be natural, not pressurize themselves with this gender bias of saying, I need to make it because I'm a woman. You just need to go out there and be the best person for the job, not the best woman or the best man for the job. And I think, that's really, and most importantly, be driven by passion, because I think, ambition is temporary, but passion is permanent. If you're really passionate about what you do, you don't even realize when you're at work. I mean, this is more true today than ever before, because we're in this work from home situation. And I think what drives us is the fact, and what keeps us sane is the fact that we're still able to contribute, we're still able to work, and we're still able to, sort of define those lines without physically having those geographic spaces of, this is work, this is home, it's all coming together now. So that's what I would say.
I know, definitely. I think whoever thought in the past that work from home would be a reality, and it's all a reality right now. And this seems very easy. And I don't think a lot of people are going into a brick and mortar office anymore. Not many people want to go back. And I feel I've heard from a lot of travel partners or friends of mine, trade colleagues, telling me the same thing, that they would love to continue this. This felt more comfortable, and they could multitask, and you could allot more time to different passions of what they have. So I guess it's a win-win situation for all of us in this current scenario. So thank you so much, Sheetal, for spending so much time with us. And I'm sure this has been a very interesting conversation, and I'm glad you were part of it. And I'm so happy that we had finally a opportunity to chat after such a long time. And for all the viewers who are watching this, I'm sure you would have found this really interesting. Please do like, share, and subscribe as always, and watch out for our next episode. Till then, bye.